the colors of the rainbow, all the voices of the wind, every dream that reaches out to find where love begins. Every word of every star in every sky, every corner of creation lives to testify. For as long as I shall live, I will testify to love. I'll be a witness in the silences when words are not enough. With every breath I take, we'll give thanks to God above. For as long as I shall live, I will testify to love. From the mountains to the valleys, from the rivers to the sea, every hand that reaches out, every hand that reaches out to offer peace, every simple act of mercy, every step to kingdom come, all the hope in every heart will speak what love has done. For as long as I shall live, I will testify love. I'll be a witness in the silences when words are not enough. With every breath I take, we'll give thanks to God above. For as long as I shall live, I will testify love. Testify, 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 testify. For as long as I shall live, I will testify love. I'll be a witness in the silences when words are not enough. With every breath I take, we'll give thanks to God above. For as long as I shall live, I will testify. With every breath I take, we'll give thanks to God above. For as long as I shall live, I will testify of love. Testify your way, testify your truth, testify your life, your love and mercy.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Evangel's online service. Today's Father's Day. Our fathers always want to give us the best. They provide for us, they guide us and teach us, and they love us in their own ways. So let's take a moment and thank our Heavenly Father for giving us earthly fathers.
the chasm that lay between us, how high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in this place. I worship you. I worship you. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 That is who you Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who
Now it's time for a sermon, and today we have Pastor Jeremiah speaking to us.
So, have you made the decision to follow Jesus? Are you at this moment a true disciple of Christ? Do you take him seriously? Oh, Pastor, how do I know? How do I know that I'm a true disciple of Jesus? Oh, before I answer that question, or before I let Jesus himself answer that question for us, let me first say that everyone's a disciple. Everyone is a disciple. The question is, who are you a disciple of? Who are you following? Who are you learning from? Who are you obeying? Whose lifestyle are you imitating? Because that answers the question, who are you a disciple of? Because a disciple is a learner, a pupil. Properly, it's defined as a follower of something who learns the doctrines or a way of life, a lifestyle. And Jesus invites us to be his disciples, to learn from him, to embrace his teaching, to hear his words, and to live by them. And that's exactly what he said in John 8:31. He says, um, if you abide in my word, then you are truly my disciples. That's John 8:31 ESV. In other words, if you abide in my word, you are really my disciples. In the NLT, it says, you are truly my disciples if you remain faithful to my teaching. What does it mean? To continue to remain. If you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples. That's what Jesus said. In other words, if you hold on to my teaching, if you keep on obeying and living out what I have said and taught, you are truly, really my disciples for sure. And then he said this, then you will experience for yourselves the truth, and the truth will free you. Wow. That's a whole other sermon right there. But in that short verse, Jesus was talking to a bunch of Jews who decided to believe in him, to continue following him in a sense of hearing from him. And just a few chapters before, a lot of people actually turned their backs. A lot of disciples turned their backs on Jesus because they decided they could no longer accept, swallow, and keep on in his teaching. But Jesus said, if you continue in my words, my teaching, if you remain, if you keep on listening and following them, then you are truly my disciples. That's the proof. That's the visible manifestation. That's the evidence that you are truly disciples of Jesus. And then you will know the truth, he said, and the truth will set you free. And so this today I want to talk about being a true disciple of Jesus and how it relates to making disciples of Jesus. You see, I firmly, really, truly, honestly believe that every single disciple of Jesus has been given the privilege of making disciples, other disciples of Jesus. And that's what we're going to be talking about. What does it mean to be a disciple and to make disciples? Well, here, the verse that I just mentioned is the verse that defines for us what a disciple is, what a true disciple is. And today we have so many people who claim to be disciples of Jesus, believers, Christians, and yet I don't know if Jesus is going to say that they are true disciples of him, actually. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you think about yourself, what you say about yourself, what other people say about yourself, who you are. At the end of the day, at the end of history of time, when things come into conclusion, what matters most is what Jesus is going to say. On that day, he said, many will come to me, claiming this and that, he said in Matthew 7. And yet Jesus is going to say to a lot of them, depart from me, I do not know you. So, guys, think about the words of Jesus. And I hope and pray that as we look upon some of these words today, we are committed to put value in it and to really measure our lives based on the words of Jesus. Because at the end of everything, it's what he says about us that matters. So, disciple making is the privilege of every single follower of Jesus. If you claim to be a disciple of Jesus, then my next question for you is this: are you making disciples? Are you committed to this activity, this command, this pursuit, this agenda of making other disciples of Jesus? Because you see, disciple making is an inevitable result, the inevitable result of Christ's indwelling presence in your life. If you are allowing Christ to dwell in your heart through faith, then what's going to happen is that you are eventually, or right now, you are going to be making disciples. It's inevitable. It's the natural outcome because that is what Jesus is all about. He's all about making disciples. That's the work. He exemplified, and today we're going to look at Jesus and disciple making, right? Because as followers of Jesus, if you claim to follow Jesus, then what is important to him ought to be important to you also. The things that he did ought to be the things that you do. The way he lived his life ought to be the way you live your life. Whoever abides in him must walk in the same manner as Jesus walked. We must have the same attitude, that same mindset. We think like Jesus. We talk like Jesus. We serve people like Jesus. We love God like Jesus. We make disciples like Jesus too. What his priorities are ought to be our priorities. What his agenda is ought to be our agenda if we are truly followers of Jesus. Disciple making, going back to Jesus and disciple making, the first thing that we're going to see in his life, in the Word, is that Jesus exemplified disciple. He did it himself. He modeled it for us. He fished for people and he trained them to obey. And later we're going to be looking at a passage that itemizes how he did that. But remember, by the Sea of Galilee, he said, he saw Peter and Andrew and James and John and said, "Come to me, and I will make you fishers of men. Follow me, and I will teach you to fish for people." What is Jesus doing there? He goes to them and says, "Okay, come follow me." And during those days, it was a rabbinic call. It was the way of the rabbis to call people to be their disciples. And when you are selected to be a disciple of a rabbi, your one task is to observe that rabbi so carefully, because you don't only want to learn what he knows, what he says, what he teaches, but you want to be like that rabbi. So the disciples back then, the Talmidim, that's what they're called, when they would be following a rabbi, they would be looking at him closely, even the way he washes, for example, his hands. Right, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because they they want to imitate the rabbi. And what is Jesus doing here? He is actually fishing for people. When he called them, he was doing exactly what he wanted to do to them. He wanted to train them to do exactly what he was about to do to them. So Jesus exemplified, he modeled it. He fished for people himself. And the rest of his ministry for 2.5 years, he spent with those disciples. And he taught them. He modeled to them. He did it in such a way that by the end of his ministry, in John 13, he said, "Okay, a new commandment I'm giving you, for you to love one another. As I have loved you, so you love one another." If you think about it, loving people is not necessarily a new command, right? God, in the Old Testament, God has been commanding his people to love other people. And it is expressed by not doing to others what you don't want others to do to you. And then early on in Jesus' ministry, he said, "Okay, I'm going to reverse that and instead say, you do unto others. So the first one is passive. You don't do unto others what you don't want people doing to you. But then Jesus says, okay, now you do unto others. This is an active kind of loving. You do unto others what you would have them do to you, right? Whatever you want others to do to you, that you do to others. So proactive love. But then here, at the end of his ministry, he says, now a new command I give you. So what is going on here? Jesus saying this is a new command when in fact it's not a new command. Well, listen to what he said. He said, a new command I give you, that you love one another as I have loved you, so you love one another. See what's happening here? For 2.5 years, Jesus discipled them and was patient to them. He selected them. He associated with them. He lived with them. He laughed with them. He did things with them. He trained them to obey. He revealed God to them. He revealed God's word to them. He prayed for them, protected them. And all these things were very, very clear to the disciples. Well, how Jesus loved them. They felt it. They knew that Jesus loved them, but how? What was it what did Jesus do to express that love? Well, he discipled them. And so now he's saying, as I have loved you, so you love one another. Wow, what an amazing. When I ask you when I ask people the question, what's the ultimate expression? What's the expression of Jesus' love for people, for his disciples? And usually the answer is, well, he died for them. Well, if you think about it, in the verse that I just mentioned you, Jesus said, as I have loved you, right? And this is pre-cross, meaning he has not yet gone to the cross. And yet he says, as I have loved you, so you love. This is past tense. So meaning Jesus is not referring to his love expressed by dying for them, but this is a love expressed by living for them, by laying down his life to them and giving them his time, his energy. That's what happens when we disciple people. We give them ourselves. We give them our resources, our time, our energy, because we value them and we want them to also know Jesus. So Jesus exemplified what disciple making is, and he did it well. He was the master disciple maker. And if Jesus is to dwell in us, what do you think is he going to continually do? Exactly that. He's going to continue making disciples, because that's his priority. And that leads me to the second point. Jesus not only modeled disciple making, he actually prioritized disciple making. It was important to him. In fact, at the very end of his ministry, just before he was arrested in John 17. So you remember in John 18, it's the betrayal and arrest of Jesus. They were in the garden. But in John 17, we have this high priestly prayer of Jesus, the real Lord's Prayer, the one that he actually prayed to God. And he started in verse 4, he said of chapter 17, John chapter 17, verse 4, I glorified you on earth. Listen to what he said. Having accomplished the work that you gave me to do. Wow. Having completed the work that you have given me to do. In this verse, we're going to see three things. Number one, by accomplishing that work, that is how Jesus glorified the Father. Number two, it was the Father who's given Jesus this work to do. And number three, this work is already accomplished even before he was arrested. So the work that he's talking about here, the job that he got from his Father, could not be referring to the work on the cross. Now, to be sure, the work on the cross is super important, right? But in this context, when Jesus is talking about his work, he's not talking about the cross. He's talking about something else. And fortunately for us, the following verses, he gives an itemized, detailed description, a sort of accomplishment report. And here's what you're going to read in these verses. Verse 6, I have manifested your name to the people whom you gave me out of the world. Remember, Jesus is praying to the Father before his disciples. And the first thing he says is, I have manifested your name to the people whom you gave me out of the world. Yours they were, and you gave them to me. In verse 8, I have given them the words that you gave me. So I have given them the words that you gave me, and they have received them and have come to know in truth that I came from you. And then I am praying for them. I'm not praying for the world, but for those whom you have given me, for they are yours. Let's jump to verse 12. While I was with them, Jesus says, I kept them in your name, which you have given me. I have guarded them. Bear in mind, Jesus is praying here, and he just said that he has accomplished the work. And the next question is, what work? And he itemizes the things that he did. He continues in verse 14. He said, I have given them your word, and the world has hated them. Verse 18, as you sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world. If you put all these things together, what Jesus has done, you are going to be able to identify the work that he's talking about. At the end of his ministry, he gave an accomplishment report to the Father, and all he said, all he reported were this. Isn't it surprising that you did not hear anything about the feeding of the 5,000 or the 4,000 or the healing of the sick, the miraculous healing, the resurrection, for example, of Lazarus, or giving sight to the blind? You did not hear things about casting out demons, although, for to be sure, they're all part of what Jesus did. But when he was giving an accomplishment report to the Father, he enumerated the things that were really part of that work, what he was called to do, what he was sent to do. And he said, I did this to them. I did this to them. And who is he referring to? Is he referring to everyone else? To every single person that he came into contact with? Absolutely not. He was praying for a specific set of people. And the clue is in verse 12. He said, while I was with them, I kept them in your name, which you have given me. I have guarded them, and not one was lost, except the son of destruction. And it's referring to Judas for sure. So, them here refers to the 12 disciples. And when Jesus was giving an accomplishment report to the Father, he said only the things that he did to his disciples. So the question now is, what did he do to the disciples? Well, he taught them. Yeah, but teaching them is part of what he did. Well, he trained them. Yes, again, that's part of what he did to them. But I want you to think about it. He combined all these things that Jesus did to his disciples. What did he do? And the short answer is, well, he discipled them. He made disciples out of them. And so here, and we can spend a whole day talking about this, because here you're going to see the priorities of a disciple maker. But I want you guys to realize, at least for now, how important disciple making was to Jesus. It was his number one priority. It was his work. He understood the work that God has given him, that the Father has given him, to be discipling those people that was given him. And so if that was Jesus's priority, then the question is, if we are his disciples, if we are disciples of Jesus, what should be our priority? What should be important to us? What should be our agenda? Well, in fact, technically, we should not have our own agenda already when we have decided to follow him, because his agenda becomes our agenda when we are true disciples of Jesus. And so Jesus modeled making disciples, and Jesus prioritized making disciples. That's his agenda. And third, he not only prioritizes, he actually commanded it to us. And in this, even in this very passage, he says, as you sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world. The very last verses in Matthew, and a lot of people believe that this was just right before Jesus ascended. Jesus gave this very clear marching orders. He said, all authority now in heaven and earth has been given to me. Now go therefore and make disciples of all nations. There's out of those verses that I just recited, there's only one command, and that is to make disciples. Making disciples is so important for Jesus. He not only did it, he prioritized it, and now, just before leaving them, he commanded them to do the same. In other words, he said, Okay, so now what I did to you, as I have discipled you, now you go and do it. You do it to other people. You teach them to obey everything that I have commanded you. Now, a lot of people, guys, are um, not doing this precisely because they feel like, oh, God did not give me this gift of disciple making. Oh, guys, I want you to notice that in this passage, it's not talking about disciple making as a gift. It's a commission. It's a command, and a command is to be followed. Um, well, Pastor, I'm not gifted in disciple making. Again, guys, it's not a gift, right? It's a command, and also when we do it, Jesus actually enables us to do it, right? He promised the necessary resources, and I would love to go through John 14 when he said, "Okay, whoever believes in me will do the work that I do," precisely what we're talking about. And you ask whatever you need, and it will be given to you, right? That's the context of that. I hear a lot of people using that verse to claim so many things, whatever. So there's so many resources, so many promises that Jesus given us in the context of us be living by his agenda. If we prioritize disciple making in our lives, then his promises stand. That's the condition. If you come under my name, if you go in Jesus' name, if you live your life in his name, meaning you are working under his authority, under his instructions, then all the resources that you need to do it, to do whatever he wants you, he tells you to do, is going to be bountifully available for you and me. What are these resources? Well, many times we think of his provisions, right? We think of the material resources, and that is true. Jesus is going to provide all those material resources that's necessary for us to accomplish the mission that he tells us to do. But actually, those material provisions are not even the most important resource that we need to accomplish the mission that God wants us to do. But we also need the power, his power to do it, the energy, the capacity, the wisdom, and he promises that too. The power that raised Jesus from the dead works mightily in us, and we're going to read about that all throughout Paul's letter, and how as he was struggling with all, belaboring, following Jesus, making him known, the power of God was available fully to him. But not only that, the most important thing is his presence. Not only the provision, the power, but the very presence of Jesus goes with us, goes before us, goes within us to be our guide. In fact, one way of looking at it is, as we do what he wants us to do, he's actually the one doing it through us. And that's the mystery of the indwelling life of Jesus in us, in the believer's life, in the disciples' life. So Jesus modeled it. He did it himself. It was his priority, and he commanded all his disciples to do it. Well, a common objection would be, well, isn't that something that Jesus told the disciples only, the 11, to do? Because in Matthew 28, that's what we see. We see him talking to the 11 disciples in verse 16. Now, the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. It is during this occasion that Jesus gave that commission. And so some people think, oh, that's only for the disciples. But then listen carefully to what Jesus said. He said, as you make disciples, this is how actually we make disciples. You teach them to obey everything that I have commanded you. So whatever instructions these disciples receive from Jesus, they are to teach the people that they're discipling to do also. Now, there's a lot of problem today in the modern church. Why this is not happening, and it's precisely because we don't know what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. A disciple is someone who has already committed to follow Jesus, to obey him fully, 100%. He is their king, their master, their Lord, the boss of their lives. And a lot of people don't understand this. And if you're one of these people, like me, for a long time, I thought that, oh, I just prayed a prayer and then I'll go to heaven eventually. But that is right now, we can have that life of Christ in us, what he offered for us. And to have that life means we will be his dwelling place, and God is going to move through us and work through us and do his thing in us and through us. That's the life of a disciple. We become a holy vessel for him. Holy meaning we are dedicated to him. We are sanctified, meaning we are living according to the purpose for which we were created. That's the simple meaning of consecration, of hagios, holy, sanctified. It means that once again we are dedicated to that very purpose for which we are created. And we are created to be his dwelling place, his vessel. And if Jesus is living in us, dwelling in us through faith in our hearts, what is going to happen in our lives? Then we are going to be devoted, dedicated to what is important to him. And here we are, I hope we are continually discovering how disciple making is important to Jesus. But he did not only command us to do it by ourselves through our own strength and resource. Jesus actually enables all of us to do it. He promises us resources, all the necessary resources that is necessary for us to accomplish this task. His provision, his power, and his very presence. So guys, are you a disciple of Jesus? Are you making disciples of Jesus? If not, why not? If you're not yet a disciple, when are you going to decide to follow Jesus? When it's too late? If you're already a disciple of Jesus, what is hindering you from making other disciples of Jesus? Is it disobedience? Or is it lack of knowledge? You don't know? Well, right now, that cannot be the case, because if you're listening right now, then you know already that it's not only important, but this is the all-important priority in the life of a disciple. Because Jesus did it, he prioritized it, and he commanded and charged us. The marching orders of the church is to make disciples, and that's a privilege that he's given you and me to do. And when we do it, he says, "I will be with you. Behold, I am with you always to the end of the age." Isn't that amazing? That as we do it, Christ goes with us. He's within us. He's powerfully at work, doing his thing as we obey him. What an amazing life of adventure. So what is stopping you? I've said all the possible reasons why people are not making disciples. Number one, they're not trained. They don't know. No one's teaching them. Number two, they're simply disobedient. They know it, but they don't want to do it. And the third most common reason actually is because in the first place, they have not really decided to be disciples of Jesus yet. And so my prayer for all of us is that we would think about these things and consider Jesus, following him, learning from him, and embracing his life and lifestyle, holding on to his teaching, understanding them, and living by them continually. Remembering what Jesus said, if you abide in my word, if you hold to my teaching, if you keep on obeying the things that I said, you are really, truly my disciples for sure. And you will experience for yourselves the truth, and the truth will set you free. Well, Jesus said, I am the truth. So, in other words, another way of putting it is, as we follow Him, as we obey Him, as we become disciples of Him, we will experience for ourselves Jesus. And Jesus will set us free. God bless us.
I love my daddy because he tickles me and he helped me learn how to bike. I love my dad because he cooks for me and plays games with me. Daddy, I like how you take care of us. I like Daddy.
Thank you, Dad, for being upstanding in your beliefs and your teachings and your sense of humor with us.
I appreciate you being a thorn in my side and a great advisor.
And also I thank you for helping me out with my studies, bouncing back and forth with talking. Helped me a lot.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. Love ya.
Happy Father's Day! Thank you for making us so much good food. So yummy. We love you.
Ellie, can you say hi, Baba? Can you say Monday, Baba?
My favorite thing about my dad is that he's creative and innovative.
My favorite thing about our dad is that he's really good at listening, and when you listen to him, he tells some really great stories.
Happy Father's Day!
Hey Dad! Thank you for teaching me how to play soccer and fixing all my messes.
Thank you for always helping me with my homework and teaching me how to drive.
Happy Father's Day!
Hi Dad! Thank you for taking care of us and showing us love in the smallest of ways. Thank you for reminding me to eat my lunch at work, and that means a lot more to me than you know. And thank you for always supporting our dreams and our passions and for celebrating us all the time. Happy Father's Day!
Daddy disappeared. Mommy and my calendar. Love you. I love Daddy because he cleans, and when I play hide and seek, he disappears. Happy Father's Day. Daddy, I love you because you play with me. Daddy, I like you because you can help me build Legos. I love you, Daddy. Happy Father's Day.
Hi, Dad. Happy Father's Day. I just want to say that you are super awesome, super supportive, and I just thank you so much for all these years of support. I cannot get here without your support, and I just want you to enjoy today, and just want to remind you how awesome you are and just how much I appreciate and respect you. So happy Father's Day.
Hey Dad, thank you for always being here for me. Thank you for being such a great role model for me. I've learned a lot from you. You've taught me a lot, and I really, really admire how you always want to learn more, educate yourself more, and read more. That you always are there to better yourself, and that I always admire how honest and righteous and humble you are to everything, that you always stand true to what you think is right, true to who you are. And so thank you for being who you are, and I love you. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Hope you're doing well, and just want to thank you for raising both Dai and me, and just setting such a good example for us, setting a phenomenal example for us on how to be a godly man. And just want to thank you and wish you a happy Father's Day, all the way from Hong Kong, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
I appreciate my dad because he always leads by example, and he always puts others before him, and so he's a really good role model. Happy Father's Day.
Dad, I've known you for 7 years, and they've been the happiest 7 years of my life. I wish you a very happy Father's Day, and thank you for reading with me. I love you, Dad. You are the best.
Happy Father's Day. Dad, thanks for always being there for us and showing us how to play video games and making sure we're always up to date with the newest electronics and computers. And I guess over the years, driving us everywhere and giving us advice on how to live life and what steps to take. So I hope you have a great day, and I love you, and I hope that we will have many more Father's Days to celebrate together.
I like my dad because he tickles me and goes bicycling with me and builds Lego with me. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Hey Evangel, just a couple announcements before you go. So first of all, there will be an English business meeting next week, June 28th at 12:15 p.m. And this meeting is to vote for our membership transfer and also the hiring of Pastor Jeremiah. So please be there, and the Zoom link will be sent to you through email. Only members are required to attend. And we highly encourage you to use your own device, as we'll be using the polling function on Zoom. And also, if you enjoyed the Father's Day video today, we will share in a short time. We're going to share the YouTube link for that video, so you could show it to your fathers. And on the COVID-19 update, the Church Council has been exploring the possibility of resuming physical church gathering. We will continue online worship until further notice, though. We will keep you updated on the church decision. And as usual, Pastor Jeremiah is hosting a Zoom webinar called Walking Like Jesus, and you can find the link on the notes section below. And the last announcement is, again, you can do e-transfer offering. Just make sure you send your offering to offering@evbc.ca. And that is all the announcement for this week. Have a great week, and we will see you back next week.